Hey everyone, and welcome. Today, we're unpacking a really startling forecast that shows just how fragile our world can be. We're going to explore a scenario where just one regional conflict kicks off a global chain reaction, with consequences that could change, well, pretty much everything. So let's just jump right into the heart of it. The analysis we're looking at starts with this bombshell of a statement: oil at $200 a barrel. Now, to be clear, our entire way of life, I mean literally everything, is built on cheap energy. A price that high isn't just an inconvenience, it's a full-blown crisis just waiting to happen. So that's the big question, right? How on earth could one fire in one region threaten to set the entire globe ablaze? Well, to answer that, we've got to first understand the very specific nature of the conflict this forecast is predicting. Okay, first up, the epicenter of this whole thing. The analysis predicts this wouldn't be some quick, decisive war. Not at all. Instead, what we'd be looking at is a brutal, drawn-out war of attrition. The source actually points to the war in Ukraine as a kind of model for this conflict. Think about it. A long, grinding stalemate where neither side can really land a knockout punch, and there's no easy way out. And the longer a conflict like that drags on, the more time all that economic and political damage has to spread across the globe. And here's a really crucial detail. The forecast says a key diplomat, maybe the one person who could have actually negotiated a way out of this mess, has been removed from the picture. Without that off-ramp, both sides are basically locked in a downward spiral, which makes further escalation almost a sure thing. So, how does this regional fight go global? Let's trace how those first shockwaves start to spread, because they hit our global energy and supply chains almost immediately. The source lays out this terrifying domino effect. It starts in the Strait of Hormuz. That's a vital artery for the world's oil supply. It gets contested. That alone pulls in regional powers like Saudi Arabia, which in turn activates its defense pacts with countries like Pakistan. And just like that, the fight has spilled way beyond its original borders. And this is the final and maybe the most dangerous step in the escalation. The analysis predicts that eventually, the U.S. would feel forced to commit ground troops. It's that classic mission creep we've seen before, where a limited engagement just spirals and spirals into a massive military commitment. And that changes the entire game. All right, let's talk about the price tag for all of this. What would a shattered global economy actually look like, and how would it really hit our daily lives? Well, the effects would be immediate, and they would be devastating. And we are back to that staggering number, $200 a barrel for oil. With the world's most critical shipping lanes basically shut down and major oil producers at war, the source claims this price isn't just a possibility, it's the intended outcome. An outcome that would absolutely shatter the global economy as we know it. And this shows you just how real those consequences would get, and fast. This isn't about some abstract numbers on a screen. We're talking about international flights just being canceled, gas stations in Asia running dry, and even the possibility of food rationing in several countries. This is where that idea of a global supply chain breakdown stops being an idea and starts hitting home hard. Now, to really get the full scale of the financial danger here, we need to talk about something called the petrodollar system. It sounds complicated, but it's pretty simple. For decades, it's been the bedrock of the US dollar's power. Basically, oil is bought and sold in US dollars, and then those dollars get reinvested back into the US economy. That system is a big reason why American goods and loans have stayed relatively cheap for so long. And this quote just nails the risk. If the stability that holds that whole system together just vanishes, the whole thing could come crashing down. The source doesn't mince words. The repercussions would be severe. We're talking about a potential collapse in the dollar's value. That means sudden, massive inflation. The cost of everything you buy could skyrocket seemingly overnight. So let's pull back and look at the long-term trends. How does a crisis like this forge a totally new reality? The analysis suggests it wouldn't just be a short-term shock. It would actually hit the gas pedal on three major global shifts that are already happening. First, de-industrialization, because without cheap energy, our massive dense cities just might not be sustainable anymore. Second, remilitarization. Countries start to realize they can't depend on anyone else to protect them. And finally, you get a new world order as all these old alliances start to crack and brand new power dynamics take shape. And here's a perfect example of that remilitarization trend in action. With the US bogged down in a conflict in the Middle East, allies like Japan and South Korea could feel totally exposed. This forecast predicts they'd have no choice but to rearm themselves, which would create a whole new set of dangerous tensions over in East Asia. And that brings us to the lasting consequences, what the source calls the shattered mirage. The key thing to understand here is that some of these changes would be permanent. This isn't a recession the world can just bounce back from. It's a complete reordering of the global system. The source paints a really bleak picture for the Gulf states in this scenario. It calls their modern societies a mirage built entirely on the foundation of American security. And once an illusion like that is shattered, you can never really put it back together again. The basic trust that held that entire region together would just be gone for good. And so, at the end of all this, we're left with a pretty unsettling question. This whole scenario, really, it acts like a global stress test. It exposes all these hidden cracks in the systems we totally take for granted, the systems that put fuel in our cars and food on our tables every single day. And it really makes you wonder, if our world is this interconnected, just how fragile is it, really?